I'm on a journey to see the world's most photographable places.
It's like being on a movie set. Every building has its own little story.
To take you along with me on a virtual photo walk.
This is the most historic spot in all of California.
To show you where the best Instagram photo spots are.
We don't do it anymore.
And to show you how to get great vacation photos with your phone, like these. I'm Jefferson Graham, and this is PhotowalksTV from California's Gold Country. We're on another one of our great photographic road trips, this time in the California Gold Country. Route 49 and Route 4, exploring all these really cool small towns which sprung to life after gold was discovered up here, thus bringing in the gold rush. The entire route is over 300 miles long, but for our purposes on this episode, we're going to do the quick 3-day version, exploring some of the most important counties and towns to the Gold Rush era, and of course, some of the most photographable. Now, these areas are where the Gold Rush, of course, was formed, but beyond the history, there's biking and hiking and rafting and so many wineries, and of course, so many great photos to take. As always, I'm filming this episode on the same camera that you're probably using, a mobile phone, and then I'll be editing the project on my laptop on my MacBook Pro, so I'm mobile all the way. Now, before we get started, as always, 3 things you need to do first. Power up to 100%. Second, make sure that you have enough room on your phone to take pictures and videos. And number 3, don't forget to wipe your lens and make it nice and clean. We're going to begin at Calaveras County and Angels Camp. This is one of the largest towns in the area, and it's where the whole idea of the gold rush was first put on the map, thanks to Mark Twain.
He was escaping from some legal trouble that he got into in San Francisco. The short version of that story, the way Mark Twain wrote it, was there was a guy, Jim Smiley, and he liked to bet on pretty much everything. So he was a big gambler. And he had a frog that he was very proud of that he said could outjump anybody else's frog. But then some stranger walked into town and he said, I've got a frog that can jump farther than Smiley's frog. But Jim Smiley's frog didn't jump. It stayed right in that same spot. And then the stranger walked away with a big wad of cash and a smile on his face and he walked out of town. Jim Smiley picked up his frog and a whole bunch of buckshot fell out of his frog because that stranger had pumped that frog full of buckshot. So that's what Mark Twain published in a newspaper, and it was only about 3 pages, so it was very, very short, but it went on to launch his writing career. So we like to say here in Angels Camp, we are the place where Mark Twain found his voice.
In the small town of Angels Camp, the highlight, of course, is Mark Twain and all those frog motifs. A stroll down Main Street will take you past well-preserved 19th century buildings, boutiques, and antique shops. We love the expansive Angels Camp Museum where we met Bronte Wilhelm. The museum is considerably larger than most of what you'd find in small towns. Our first night of the road trip brought us to Murphy's, another really cute small town up the way that has become a haven for people who live in San Francisco and Sacramento, folks who would like to visit another wine country setting in a cute town beyond Napa.
You should come visit the Gold Country, especially in the fall, because the colors are really spectacular here, as you can see from Main Street here.
Yeah, this is getting away from it all. And what I try and tell people is you can get space dirt. You can see from downtown Murphy's, it's just one long street. But that's it. And ultimately, you can get lost in nature. And then also our giant sequoias, the big trees. This is it's the only state park that has giant sequoias in it, and it's the first place the giant sequoias were found. Is Calaveras Big Trees. And if you've never walked among the giants, I always suggest doing it. It's a very easy flat walk, and you see some of the most majestic and largest living orchids on Earth.
Speaking of the trees, don't miss checking them out. As Martin told me, you can take a great 1-hour hike on flat land and have a blast looking up into the skies. Just up the road is another attraction, and it's anything but flat. The Moaning Caverns Adventure Park was first explored by gold miners in the 1840s and 50s. It's home to the largest cave chamber in California, but warning, it is a huge climb down and back up. Time for an hour's drive and part 2 of the Gold Country road trip. Alrighty, now we are in Sutter Creek, which according to the brochure is the jewel of the gold country, founded in 1854 and looking mighty nice. Shall we take a look around?
Sutter Creek is the best preserved gold rush town in California. It's absolutely beautiful. If you look down the street, it's just like you rode in on a stagecoach.
Sutter Creek has lovingly preserved 19th century buildings, lots of antique shops and wine tasting rooms. The town is named after John Sutter, the man who owned the mill where gold was discovered. Town highlights include a foundry shop where tools for the mining industry were created once upon a time, and it's still standing today.
So this is the place that if you ran a gold mine, you knocked on our door and asked for everything that you needed to run the gold mine. So all of the equipment was produced here. And this is hard rock mines that we're talking about. So gold embedded in quartz that's down. I mean, these are quite deep mine structures and very complex. And there's a lot of lifting to get the material up and out and to get things that are needed down and in, including people. This is as things were in 1873, yes. It actually was operational until 1996.
And now the Night Foundry is open for tours. For our first two stops of the Gold Rush trip, we stayed at the Dunbar House, a cute little B&B, which is walking distance right on the main street in Murphy's, and then Rest, a boutique hotel near Sutter's Creek in Plymouth, with a cool companion restaurant next door called Taste. In this segment, we showed you adjoining Gold Rush towns, but when we return from the break, we're off to Coloma, a tiny place where gold was actually first discovered in California way back, and after that, we're off to Hangtown. Before the break, we began exploring the gold country of California, just north of Sacramento, to small towns that prospered during the gold rush of the 18th century. Now we're going direct to the source, to the California town where gold was actually first discovered, Coloma, California, a tiny place with just a few hundred residents and a little museum on the history of gold mining. This is where we met a tour guide for a close-up look.
This is the most historic spot in all of California.
Yes, it was in these waters where gold was first discovered way back when. It was James Marshall who looked down at what he found in the ground and said to his then boss, John Sutter, "This looks like gold." Now, this is Sutter's Mill, and of course we just went to Sutter Creek, the small town named after John Sutter, but it was James Marshall who was credited with discovering gold. In fact, this is called the Marshall Gold Discovery Park.
This started the gold rush. People come from all over the world to feast their eyes on this ditch.
Sure, you can still find gold in the waters, but it's in tiny, tiny specks. You won't get rich, and you'll spend hours panning for it, locals tell me.
That's real gold. He picked up this piece of gold, put it on a rock, grabbed another rock, and started smashing it.
Now, small town of Coloma that we're in right now, it's very small, but we're about to go check out one more really cool small town for part of our Gold Country trip, Placerville. So next up, let's get going. Geography reminder, Placerville is about an hour from Sacramento to the south and Lake Tahoe in Nevada to the north. Okay, I take that back. Placerville is actually one of the larger of the Gold Rush towns with a really cute main street and kind of a gruesome past.
Once upon a time, we were known as Hangtown, and we've moved because modern sensibilities have kind of shifted away from the iconography of the noose, but we once upon a time had nooses on our street signs, on our police cars and things like that. We've moved away. I will say that by way of historical context, as opposed to a Lynchburg or something like that, the hangings here were legally done processes that were not racially motivated, but still, at the end of the day, can be a ghoulish icon.
Placerville's place in Gold Rush history was as a hub for miners to get equipment, food, and lodging since Coloma was so close by.
Miners had to go to a place to weigh the gold.
And Main Street of today does not look that different.
Oh, it's a great place. It's like being on a movie set. Every building has its own little story. Ours has its own unique story also.
Photo walking in Placerville is pretty simple. You're going to walk down Main Street from the county courthouse on one side down to the historic Cary Hotel on the other. You're going to see lots of antique shops, places to eat, stores where you can buy stuff, and fun side streets to explore. The big retail highlight, of course, is the Placerville hardware shop. No establishment on Main Street is a better example of the way things were than the hardware store, which is the oldest west of the Mississippi.
We are now 172 years old as of this June this year. I mean, gold was discovered here. I mean, so many people come here just for that reason. And we are in turn keeping that tradition going by selling gold pans, sluice boxes. All this is available. People stop at the door entrance and their mouths drop open. They cannot believe the merchandise we have. And that's our claim to fame. We try to have something for everybody. No matter how eclectic your tastes might be, we will probably have it. And the beauty of this place is you can buy one screw. You're not stuck with a box of 100.
Once upon a time, we had one of the largest populations in all of California, especially during the height of the gold rush, where the closest neighbor city is a big term, to Coloma. Once upon a time, we had a lot of the merchants who grew rich off of the gold rush and the miners. They settled in this area. So you're sort of rooted in an area that its history is inextricably linked to the gold rush in a really indelible way.
I asked locals for the best, most frequented photo spot in Placerville, and it was
The Hangman's Tree. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know it's a unique spot. They definitely are honoring the past. I see it all day long across the street. People walking, always taking the pictures.
I stopped into the Hangman's Bar to find out the origin.
Yeah, there was only a few people hung. I think they didn't really have a big jail or a lot of infrastructure when everyone was moving here for the gold mine era. So that was just their capital punishment
for stealing gold.
For stealing gold or murder or more harsher sentencing, and I believe it was like one of the last hangings in California that was legal.
How do we feel about that name? Because I saw it all over town.
What, Hangtown?
Yeah, is that okay?
It's okay for me. It's historic.
Yeah.
Of course. We don't do it anymore.
It is a very divisive topic. There's a lot of people who recognize that when it comes to modern sensibilities, the news carries certain implications that are less than welcome, especially to people who aren't familiar with our history. If you just come in and you see the news without knowing the context, obviously it can be an off-putting image. There's a lot of people who argue that we should celebrate our heritage and history, which does include once upon a time being known as Hangtown. But in the grand scheme of Placerville's history, it's been known as Placerville a lot longer than that, and it has much richer and more diverse a history than just a few hangings that happened once. So there are some people that hold very strongly to the Hangtown identity, but there are typically a lot more people who either recognize that it is an element of our history and not necessarily a shameful one, but it isn't something that we need to actively advertise anymore.
Meanwhile, there is a lot more to Placerville than just Hangtown memorabilia, nostalgia, and that amazing Main Street. It also happens to be in one of the prettiest areas of California, and it is beloved for apples and wine. Let's begin with Apple Hill. This is a collection of over 50 farms, orchards, and bakeries in the foothills of El Dorado County, which is less than 5 miles away from Main Street in Placerville. Beyond picking or buying many varieties of apples, there are also specialty products that are very popular, including apple cider donuts and, of course, pies. The Larson Apple Barn is the oldest family-run farm in the area, and it's a place where I had a total blast taking photos. Now Now let's talk wine. The region is home to 70 plus wineries, most of which are family owned, and they are inviting places to have picnics.
Wine is a huge deal in this area. So we have about 60 wineries in Dorado County, and Boeger was the first, but many followed afterwards. And so this area is really great for wine because we have lots of really unique microclimates. So unlike places like Napa Valley, where they sort of grow Cabernet Sauvignon or have a couple grapes that are they're well known for, we grow about 30 different grapes, and that's pretty common for wineries up here because you have all these little different microclimates. So what grows well here is different than what grows well here. It is apples and wine for sure, yes. And all the good things that come with apples too, like fritters and donuts and pies and all those delicious things. But you can always wash that down with a great glass of wine. Yes, day in Apple Hill, lots of fun things to do up here. So all those apple goodies, lots of wine, lots of Christmas tree farms up here as well. So we're in our historic cellar built in 1872. You can see the walls constructed of field stone, and that would have been stones that they removed from the property as they were planting grapevines and other trees. And a couple really neat features here. These two chutes that you see are how they used to make wine back in the day. So the family lived upstairs, and just like I Love Lucy, they would crush the grapes upstairs and they would fall down here to where it's a really nice temperature.
In Placerville, we stayed in a place with so much history, the Seasons B&B. This is a Gold Rush home here?
This is built in 1859, a gold stamp mill house where they crushed the quartz. And it works.
Really?
Yep.
Marge, get me Mabel.
When looking for lodging, there are several B&Bs in Placerville. Airbnb has a big selection, and traditional motels line up nearby Highway 50. For local food on Main Street, we loved Franny's Farm Table. That's Erica, the owner, who you met earlier.
We do a little bit of everything. We do, pastas, dinners, appetizers, salads, do some tacos, which are kind of what people really like, but just good food, clean food. Like I say, we're not killing animals outside. We don't have a garden on the roof, but we do treat food well, and we definitely want to do a good service to the community and to the people who walk in, and treat people nice and make them feel at home.
My words of advice, if you're thinking of coming, first of all, November next year. Look at these colors. I mean, it's really great. The leaves turn later here. And secondly, I've given you a sampler of what to expect in each of the 3 counties. If you're going to come, slow down. Go to one of them. Spend 3 days in one of them. You'll have plenty to do. Meanwhile, we still have one more item on our agenda. When we come back, it's photo tip time, when I show you how to get great photos of the Gold Country with your smartphone. All right, it's time for our photo tips segment, where I've got several of my favorite smartphone tricks, beginning with the vertical pano. Now, you all, of course, know the panoramic image to give us a great big widescreen shot as we hold the phone vertically and go from side to side. Well, what if you wanted to capture the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building, those huge trees in Calaveras County? Well, the vertical pano, you can also go this way. You can go from the bottom to up, and it'll look really great. Now, you could do the tree vertically, and it'll be okay, it'll be nice, but as a pano, you bring in the other trees as well. Now, it's a kind of a wild shot. It might be an acquired taste. I think it's cool. It's free, it won't cost you anything. You might as well do that, and of course, your vertical shot and your horizontal shot, like you know me. Do it all, but give this a try. So basically, you just open up the app, go to the Pano app on your phone, and just start at the bottom and end at the top. You'll find the Pano app on the iPhone all the way at the end. It's the last offering. And on the Galaxy, it is in the More section. Another smartphone trick that I love is the car streak at night shot. And you can do that really easily on your phone. That's where you take a shot of the downtown area or a freeway or something, some area where there's lots of cars that are oncoming, and you make their headlights look like streaks, like long lines. Now, on the iPhone, it's a really easy thing to do in night mode. Night mode is the most misunderstood of the features on the iPhone because it only comes out at night. It's automatic. It won't come out in the daytime, but when it works, It's really cool. To get night mode, when it's dark, you open up your camera app, you go to the caret at the top and look for the menu on the bottom. This night mode is the second one. And you click that open, you take it off auto and you go up to max, and that will keep the shutter open as long as possible. And that's what produces the streaks. You can get the effect on a Galaxy by going to the Pro setting and lowering the shutter speed all the way. And you could also use a third-party app like Even Longer or Slow Shutter. Finally, a basic travel photography tip. When you're roaming around and checking out new areas, capture the images that scream, "I was there." The gelato of Italy, the breads of Paris, the frogs of Angels Camp, California, and all of Calaveras County. When you stop there, that's the town that Mark Twain put on the map because of the barking frog contest, and they hold that deer all these years later, and you see frog memorabilia all over town. I'd recommend capturing a few images of those frogs and putting them in your portfolio. If you're putting stuff on Facebook, do the selfies. Do the pictures of the buildings, but have a frog in there as well. And since we're doing gold country, a little gold memorabilia wouldn't be too bad either. Let's take a look back at some of the key shots of our gold country photo road trip. That's our photo road trip of California's Gold Rush country. I hope by watching this you are inspired to come visit this highly underrated area. If you do come, please mark your calendars for next October and November. The colors turn later here than they do on the East Coast, and they're a joy to see, right?